And that's where we have things like NoSQL databases, which basically analyze text and try to give you some idea of what is in that unstructured data. But for structured data, SQL is still king.
Through the Noise Insights with Ernesto Gluecksmann and Mickey Panayiotakis.
Mickey, thanks.
Ernesto, thanks.
Good to see you.
Hey man, it's good to see you. You're looking good. How's the wife?
Everything's going well so far.
You have 2 kids now, right?
Yes, so far.
Do you ever consider kids as data? Data points or data at all? Or the data that, there's got to be something.
They're unstructured data points.
Well, they're definitely unstructured. Unless they take after Molly.
She's the database admin in our household. She's putting structure around it. But what is NoSQL?
So let me think about it. You have.
Why would I think about my kids? I don't think
because how much data do you put online about the kids?
Too much. It's concerning.
And is that just like sharing photos? But I guess they're too old to have like baby monitors, but you had those and they were like easily hacked. Do you have data? But my girlfriend has a cat and has like a cat cam, and that goes to the cloud somewhere.
Yeah, I've been hesitant to install cameras in my home only because I don't like the idea of that camera footage being sent to the cloud for some reason.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'd rather have like a localized, like I'd pay money for that.
Yeah,
that there's like a 24-hour tape drive and it collects all the data there. And if I need it, I can pull it out and then give it to somebody. If there's an incident that I need to look back into.
All right. We digress. So we're going to talk about data, aren't we?
Well, I was going to ask you about NoSQL stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't know much about it. I come from the days of SQL and queries.
Yeah,
and
so do I.
Data
those dark days of but SQL is still alive and well. I think all rumors of its demise have been greatly overstated.
As always in tech,
to the point where there's actually
if it works, why you guys gotta keep changing things?
For those who don't really follow the geek world of SQL, Microsoft SQL of course is up and alive and well. The traditional one for nonprofit for open source is MySQL, which has been forked twice. Now the new kids use MariaDB, which is basically a fork of MySQL, and there is AuroraDB, which is a Amazon AWS version fork of MySQL. So anybody who thought that MySQL is dying, or SQL is dying, needs to look around the landscape and realize that everything still uses SQL. But the big buzzword out there is NoSQL databases. We actually had a client come to us and say, "Hey, I have all this data, and we hired this company that uses like NoSQL and blah blah blah, and they can't give us any answers. So can you guys do anything about it?" And the
law firm, right?
They'll go nameless.
We don't have to name them.
All right, it's a law firm.
They were doing
we're in DC, so it might be just as good as
trip over them already.
All right, so we lost any law firm clients. That's good. So I think that the big difference is that we generate a lot of data right now. Your kids alone probably generate a whole bunch of data but it's not neatly structured. It's not like tables and rows and columns and related neatly by a key ID or an ID, et cetera, et cetera. So we have all this like random blabber data, whether it's like Twitter streams or whatever it is. And that kind of data is not well handled by SQL. And that's why we have things like NoSQL databases, which basically analyze text and try to give you some idea of what is in that unstructured data. But for structured data, SQL is still king.
So if you're just amassing data from like disparate systems and sort of dumping it into the cloud somewhere,
I think
NoSQL is a way to send there. It's like what?
I guess if you have, I don't know that much about NoSQL, but I know that if you have, for example, books of data or PDFs of data, you have, let's say you're an organization and you have memos going back to 1947 and they're all printed out in PDF forms and so on. We can OCR those and know what's in them, but we can't really search them. So you can't really tell easily how many memos do you have about I don't know, office safety, or how many security breaches happened in 1942. How many IT security breaches happened in 1992?
Because it's unstructured. You don't have the metadata attached to.
You don't have it on a neat
yeah.
table somewhere, right?
Mhm.
It's just like a memo that someone put out. So you can, but you could put all those memos in an online store, and using certain NoSQL techniques and possibly some AI, might be able to get some of the data out.
Have the AI try to structure it for you, or have the machine learning processing the algorithms in there to try to find some of the structures.
Yeah, I mean, I think things like memos are a good example because they're technically unstructured, but there is a formality to a memo. You know, there's a to and a from and a subject line and a date. So you should be able to extract those without, tabular data and say, based on this, I could be completely off base with this, but based on the structure or the format of a traditional memo, these are the data we can extract. And because of that, we can plot it out and say, dig through all the memos that were written in 1942, see how many of them have something to do with security on the title, and of course, it'd have to be a little bit more specific. Things like not much, but a little bit less specific. So it may be that we find synonyms and natural language processing and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
at the end of the day, you should be able to say, okay, we had 3 memos in 1942 about workplace safety.
I think all this stuff, the new stuff that's coming out, is it the result of our ability to scale massive servers, or in some cases serverless instances in the cloud, and then they're kind of going, all right, well then people are going to collect a lot of data, and now we have to come up with, that's unstructured and a mess. We have to come up with algorithmic techniques to try to figure out what of all this stuff might be useful. It's like
Yeah,
sort of the
it's a philosophical question, right? It's how, what information can we glean, and is it useful? I mean, that's the question. We have the ability now to scan through reams of data that aren't databases. We can also look through data and just find anomalies, just mine it for whatever information they weren't even looking for. Just say, go through a statistical calculation and find heuristically what is more likely or what stands out statistically, right? Which is, interesting, but, does it actually do anything for us? Is it really all that much useful, actionable? Can you do anything with something? If it's like 1 or 2% more likely to happen, well, there could be an error in the data. There could be errors that account for that. If it's 7 or 10% more likely to happen, then that's something we can act on. And I guess, a big thing is we have the computing power available. It's not just a massive amount of it that we have, but we also have like computers just so much so powerful now that we can just throw problems at them and see if they work. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do that on a reasonable scale.
No, there was just
right?
more theoretical stuff. In the future, it would be something like that. But we're now at the point where we can. The question is, what of the algorithmic tools can be applied, and specifically to what end? Like, what are just because you can create a probabilistic optimized outcome of a data set in a certain way doesn't mean that's actually taking you in the direction towards the problem you're trying to solve, right?
Right.
So you have to just kind of try it. There's still a lot of trial and error in this space right now, right?
Yeah, it's pretty great.
We have cool tools, we just don't really know what to do with them yet.
Yeah,
and we're trying to figure that out. That's sort of the state, in a sense. That's my general impression of machine learning these days.
Yeah, I mean, machine learning, AI, NoSQL. I guess NoSQL is nice for searching things, right? You have data that you can search that are unstructured. You can probably do something with NoSQL, but yeah, the machine learning. There's a few things that I guess we're starting to use it for things that we know it can do, like identifying photos of cats on the internet. And then in more sinister things like identifying, face recognition in, let's say, in China, there's a recent issue with that. Face recognition, it could be sinister, it could not be, but that's certainly something we haven't really had a discussion around yet. But we haven't really had a discussion about, is it useful and how does it benefit us, and should we be doing it? What are the privacy implications? Specifically for things like facial recognition, and more generally about all that machine learning and so on, is how can we actually use it to make the world a better place outside of selling ads and tagging friends on Facebook?
You know what? Let's leave it at that. But just something occurred to me. I got to bring some data scientists on the show.
Yeah, we should.
We should bring them in.
Yeah.
Kind of
That's a
see what
great
they're
idea.
seeing. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks
Hey,
for short one. Take care.
Easy. Sweet.
Don't worry about NoSQL.
All right. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
For more episodes of Through the Noise, go to throughthenoise.us.